You're watching The Neutral Corner for the week of August 15th. I'm Michael Montero. Look, if you're inside the UK and you haven't picked up the latest issue of Boxing Monthly, you're a horrible person and God hates you. If you're outside the UK and you want to check out the magazine, you can get the app on iTunes. Just go to iTunes and search for Boxing Monthly. And no matter where you are in the world, you can check out the site boxingmonthly.com. That's a pretty easy website address, guys. You can do that. boxingmonthly.com. For those of you who don't know, Boxing Monthly is a British boxing magazine. It's one of the finest boxing publications in the world. And myself and Tiffany Lamb, we are the American correspondents for their website. We contribute to boxingmonthly.com. Real cool feature in this month's issue about Carl Froch, one of the better British fighters in the recent times, and just kind of a look back at his career and stuff. So yeah, check it out. boxingmonthly.com, iTunes, or if, like I said, you're in the UK, check it out in stores. But let's get to the ring walk. Okay, I actually received a bunch of similar questions from a lot of you out there about the James Toney fight. Did I see the James Toney fight this weekend? So I have not seen it. I didn't even know he was going to fight. But for those of you who don't know, James Toney, the long shot former middleweight champion, is still fighting on. He's 46 years old. He fought last weekend in St. Louis, Missouri. He lost to I don't even want to say journeyman. He lost to a guy, I don't even remember the opponent's name. I'm not even going to bother bringing that up. I do know that the opponent had lost his last two fights. They had never fought more than, I think, 6 rounds, scheduled 6-rounder. And this one went 10 rounds, and James Toney lost by decision. I don't know how the boxing commission in Missouri even cleared him medically. Anybody who's been around James Toney, seen any recent interviews with him, and listened to him talk, he's punchy. He's got brain damage. I think it's very, very clear. The guy can't get licensed in California, here, and we're the best boxing commission in this country, if not in the world. He can't get licensed in Nevada, okay? California and Nevada are basically the 2 top commissions in America, and if you can't get licensed there, it's for good reason. This guy has become another sad story. One of the, a long list of sad stories in boxing. He's just one of the latest. We've seen fighters go on past their due date many times, but a lot of those guys that do that, they're doing it for the money and everything, but they're still mentally with it, James isn't. And it's easy for me to bash the commission, to bash the sanctioning organization, whoever sanctioned this fight, to bash the trainers, the cornermen, who, are knowingly basically helping this guy die slowly. If anything, they're accessories to second-degree murder. It's easy for me to bash those people, but I want to also include in the bash fest here around James Toney, media. And that includes amateur internet media and professional media alike, but especially the amateur guys who literally go to gyms, they go to press conferences, they hold a little camcorder, they stick it in a fighter's face and talk to him. You guys out there doing that, when you talk to James Toney, you should be asking him questions like, why don't you retire? Are you concerned about your health? Is your family concerned? Etc., etc. You guys are interviewing James Toney and saying, hey man, talk about your next fight. What round are you gonna, knock him out in? How are you gonna do against Vladimir Klitschko? You're the best. You guys are contributing to this problem as well, all right? So you guys need to check yourself. I'm disgusted by this whole thing. And this is another reason why, look, politically, I'm an independent, okay? I'm moderate, but I'm not a fan of big government programs. I'm not a fan of unions. I think they get corrupt, but boxing needs a commission, one central federal commission here in the United States. I understand that there's boxing all over the world, obviously, but there's more licensed fighters here in America than anywhere else. And all the big fights are here. I shouldn't say all, many, okay? This is the place that fighters from all over the world come and fight in. And there's no reason why we couldn't take 1% of the total revenue, the total gate, the purse of every title fight held here in the United States, and take that aside and use it as a pension fund for retired boxers. So guys like James Toney, who are still fighting on for the money, and how much money is he making fighting at a hotel in St. Louis against a no-name? $1,000, a couple $1,000? Guys like him could use money from a pension fund. So that's a whole nother rant I could go on. I just, look, to answer your questions, long story short, no, I didn't watch the fight. I'm not gonna watch it. I refuse to watch it. I know what happened. I reported the results. That's it. The guy shouldn't be fighting. It's pathetic. And any of you out there trying to interview Toney and trying to train with him, you are accessories to murder. This man is literally, every time he gets in that ring, he is losing days off of his life. James Toney is not one of these fighters, obviously when you look at him, you can tell, that does a ton of road work, does a lot of bag work, lifts weight. He trains by sparring. He's old school. He trains by getting in the ring and sparring. This dude has sparred thousands of rounds, and he shouldn't be allowed to do it anymore. So last Friday we had a pretty entertaining ShoBox card where two Eastern European middleweight prospects fought back-to-back. In the co-feature, Evan Kitroff improved to 11-0 with a TKO in the 8th round against Nick Brinson. And this is a fight that he was actually losing halfway through, but he started to wear Brinson down. Brinson, you know, it was all he could do to stay up on his feet the last couple rounds, and Kitroff scored a TKO. I think Brinson took a knee, he got back up, and then Kitroff was teeing off. The ref stopped the fight. I thought it was a fine stoppage. You felt bad for Brinson because he survived for so long and there was only a few seconds left, but dude was done, right? Here's the thing. The scorecards at the time of the stoppage, and this was only an 8-round fight, so that 8th round was the final round. Two judges had it for Brinson. Now, it was a close fight, but Judge Tony Perez had it 80-72 for Brinson. The ShoBox telecast, the analysts, they had it slightly for Kitroff. That's how most of the media and fans had it. Most people had Kitroff by about 5-3 or so at the time of the stoppage. For Tony Perez to have it 80-72 for Brinson, it's one of two things. Either he's completely drunk or on drugs or something and somehow fought Brinson, you know, who again was knocked down in the final round. That's a 10-8 round. Maybe he was just wasted, or he reversed the names on the scorecard and he really meant to score at 80-72 for Kitroff, which still is not a very good score, but it's the right man would have won on his card. Either way, if you're that incompetent to where you can't get the names right, to where you're switching the names, you shouldn't be judging a fight. Mr. Tony Perez should not judge a fight, any televised high-profile fight, for at least 6 months to a year, until he can prove he can read. Now in the main event, Sergey Derevyanchenko scored a unanimous decision in 8 rounds over Elvin Ayala, who is, you know, a pretty quality fighter. He's been in there with some guys. He knows what he's doing. He's got a little craft to him. He's a survivor. Derevyanchenko improved to 6-0. This guy was 390-20 as an amateur. And what I didn't realize, one of you guys on Twitter reminded me that I totally forgot about. He fought in the World Series of Boxing. He was 23-1 and was the champ in 2011 and 2012 in the World Series of Boxing. A little bit of controversy about the World Series of Boxing because those fights are basically pro fights. There's no headgear. You're wearing the smaller gloves. They're scored 10-point must system by 3 judges. But the Association of Boxing Commissions does not consider them professional fights. So this guy by rights could be 29-1 as a pro right now if those World Series of Boxing fights counted. But they don't. So he's 6-0. The difference between Derevyanchenko and Kitroff, to me, was pretty clear. Sergey Derevyanchenko seems like the more seasoned fighter who's ready to go from prospect to contender. He's ready to jump in there against the top 10 guy. Kitrov struggled early on against Brinson, and I just think he needs a little more seasoning. He's still a prospect, still a work in progress, but both of these guys look good. And look, there's some interesting things happening in the middleweight division. Two of the biggest stars in the sport, Gennady Golovkin, Canelo Alvarez, they're going to be on a collision course over the next 18 months because I believe Canelo is going to beat Miguel Cotto. Miguel Cotto is on his way out. You've got some real things happening at middleweight, and these two guys should be a factor over the next couple years. So things are really heating up at middleweight. On Saturday, there was a card on HBO Latino, and in the main event, Dmitry Mikhalenko, a guy with over 180 amateur fights, another Eastern European prospect, scored an 8th round TKO against Venezuelan Johan Perez. Perez, you might remember, fought a very tough, close fight with Mauricio Herrera last year, barely lost. That was at 140. This fight was at 147. And Mikhalenko just looked bigger, stronger, all that amateur experience. But the point is, he walked through Perez. And like I said, Perez went the distance with Herrera in a very close fight last year. So Perez isn't trash. He's a quality fighter. So Mikhalenko looked really good. In the co-feature, undefeated Manuel Avila improved to 18-0, beating former Cuban amateur standout, Yoandris Salinas. Guy had over almost 300 amateur fights. So Avila looks pretty good. He's from here in California. Like I said, he improved to 18-0. Really dominated from the outset. He dropped Salinas in the 2nd round, and Salinas complained about a hand injury and basically quit on his stool after 5 rounds. So both of these guys looked good Saturday. All 4 of these prospects look pretty good. And these were 2 nice cards on ShoBox and HBO Latino. These are the kind of cards that we expect from those broadcasts, right? The championship fights are supposed to happen on the bigger platforms, but some of these smaller platforms, the fights are interesting, and these prospects are being matched well so that they have to improve. They have to make adjustments. I've been critical of some of these other boxing entities where the prospects are not being matched very tough, and that bites them in the butt in the end. Speaking of other boxing entities, we have 2 PBC cards this weekend. One on Friday. This is PBC on Spike TV here in the States. And this one is headlined with Antonio Tarver taking on Steve Cunningham. In the co-feature, Marco Huck takes on Krzysztof Glowacki, I think is how you say it. It's a Polish fighter. All right, let's start with the co-feature. Marco Huck and Glowacki. This guy is 24-0, the Polish fighter, and I've never seen him. But we've seen some of these Polish guys come over in recent years, and they've been tough, man. Some of these guys are pretty good, and they're pretty rugged and tough. Andres Fonfara comes to mind. You saw what he did with Adonis Stevenson last year. Stevenson doesn't seem to want a rematch. Marco Huck is one of those guys, when he's at his best, he's pretty entertaining. So this actually could be the best fight of the 4 fights PBC has this weekend. Huck, Glowacki. Based on just what I know about the fighters, you got to think Marco Huck is the favorite, but we'll see. In the main event, Antonio Tarver, Steve Cunningham. Okay, Tarver used to be the light heavyweight champion. He was the legit light heavyweight champion of the world. Scored that emphatic victory over Roy Jones. I believe it was a 2nd round knockout. That was really the highlight of his career. That was a long time ago. And he's been rocking a big old pot belly the last few years, trying to fight at heavyweight. I don't really know what he expects, but he's been calling out Vladimir Klitschko forever. Steve Cunningham, the former cruiserweight champion, has moved up a few pounds. He's very undersized at heavyweight, but he's in shape. He's always been a pretty fast fighter, pretty athletic, always comes in shape, like I said. Chinny, he's always had chin issues, even at cruiserweight. The difference between these two guys is I think it's arguable that Cunningham has fought the better opposition at heavyweight, right? He's fought more bigger guys, bigger guys than Tarver. Tarver's coming off a victory last December over Jonathan Banks, who's, a decent heavyweight. He's a much better trainer than he is a fighter, though. I was ringside for that fight. And Tarver, he's got craft. He really does have a lot of boxing craft. He still is very good with his angles, his distance, and timing. So you'd have to think he's the favorite against Steve Cunningham. Cunningham might punch harder at heavyweight. I don't know. He absolutely will probably be the best guy that Tarver's fought at heavyweight. Definitely the best fighter he's fought in a long time. So this could be interesting, but the way Tarver fights as a heavyweight is very slow paced. 10 punches around, really picks his spots, basically tries to nullify what his opponent does. So I expect this to be a horrible fight. But look, I thought the Jacobs-Mora PBC fight was going to be horrible, and that was kind of entertaining while it lasted. So what do I know? The following night on Saturday, we have PBC on NBC Sports Network. So this is not regular NBC, this is their secondary network. This one's from Montreal. The Tarver-Cunningham fight's from New Jersey, by the way, if any of you cared. The PBC on NBC Sports Network fight is from Montreal, and it's headlined with Lucien Bute taking on Italian fighter Andrea Di Luisa. I don't know anything about this guy, the opponent, right? So you got to think Bute's a big favorite here. Bute's had some tough fights in recent years. Of course, the huge loss to Frach, and then he had a tough loss to Pascal. So maybe they're just trying to throw him a bone here. You can get a easy win in front of his hometown fans. I know the Italian kid won't be coming to lose though, so Bute's going to have to show up. But, Bute's a quality fighter. I think he's still got something left in the tank. He's got to win this fight. In the co-feature, Eileider Alvarez, Colombian light heavyweight, who's 17-0 right now, takes on Isidro Prieto, another fighter. I have no idea who this guy is. I've never seen him. Alvarez has been featured on several PBC cards. Like I said, he's a Colombian fighter. I think he fought in the Olympics for Colombia in 2008. Undefeated. He's shown some flashes of power. He's fought on a few cards as the co-feature on the undercard for Adonis Stevenson. So I do think at some point we're either going to see Alvarez against Stevenson or maybe Bute-Di. I don't know, but he should win this fight because, like I said, I've never heard of this guy. Look, it's hard to get excited about any of these matchups with the PBC. They've got the Santa Cruz Mares fight coming up at the end of this month. I'm excited for that because it's literally a mile from my apartment. As long as Al Haymon doesn't ban me, I should be ringside. But other than that, man, the schedule it's bleak with the PBC over the next month or so. These kind of matchups, if you're trying to build casual fans, ain't gonna do it. But that's it for this week in boxing. The schedule right now is a little bit of a lull, but it's gonna pick back up real soon, starting with that Santa Cruz Mares fight I talked about. So that's it for this week. Like I said, check out boxingmonthly.com. And, if you don't have my links yet, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, it's all Montero on boxing. That's easy. Easy to remember, guys. A chimp could remember that. All right, I'm out of here.